Color is a very powerful tool in the garden and also in art or in all our lives. It makes a big impact, and what we prefer, what we feel comfortable with, depends a lot on where we live, what age we are living in. It is actually light that comes into your eye, and then the brain processes it. And how the brain does it, not even the scientists know. There's a lot written about color, of course, both in the garden and in art, and all around us. But I must mention this book because I like it a lot. Ole, my husband, has given it to me. It's a Swedish translation of Senini's book about color, about art actually. And it's about everything, how to sharpen a goose pen, how to erase with kneaded bread, and so on and so on. And a lot about colors. I just had to mention it because it's a wonderful book. And it's written 1437, a long time ago. As a manuscript, it was hidden in the Vatican, and then someone in the 19th century found it, and it was translated, and it has influenced a lot of artists since then. It's a book that I like a lot. But there are very many other books, like the Swedish Gottfrid Kallstenius has written about painting, and that is an interesting book to read. And of course, Andrew Lawson, his book about color in the garden is just fantastic. So knowledgeable and so full of insights and clever solutions and so on. A very good book. And of course, Gertrude Jekyll has written about color schemes for flower gardens and so on. The 4 elementary colors: yellow, red, blue, and green. Senini, from the 15th century, his color schemes are from depending on how the pigments are extracted. For example, which soils or wood, ashes, etc. He calls these colors natural. It's black, red, yellow, and green. He then adds white, light yellow, and ultramarine, because they are much more complicated to produce. The technical side of color and making paint I will not talk about, mainly because I know too little about it, but I must say it's very interesting. I will focus on the effect color has in our gardens and in nature, art, or a little bit everywhere. Our brain can distinguish how red something is, or how yellow, how blue, or how light something is. And then the brain goes on organizing it. And I suppose it is depending on our experiences, preferences, or even how our brain is built. My friend Lena can identify the smallest nuances in a gray surface that others cannot even see. Lena describes how strong colors feels painful for her to look at, while our daughter, on the other hand, has a hunger for strong colors. When we started making our garden, we realized that we had to cooperate with our house, since it is quite dominant in our limited plot. We painted the house in the same color tones that we had seen used on houses also designed by Ragnar Östberg, with the red details around the windows and on different places. And we then decided to make this red color our theme, repeated throughout the garden on plants and paraphernalia. And we also encouraged red plants here and there, planted some and let some self-seeded remain. I also decided to especially concentrate red plants in one place, to make a red border that I had read about and seen in England and in America. And I decided to use the slopes between the terraces that we built because I thought that it would be so difficult to cut the grass on the slopes. So why not make them into borders? My excuse is that this was 40 years ago. And what I didn't realize is that if it's difficult to cut the grass on a slope, it's nothing compared to tending to a flower bed. But my excuse is it was a long time ago and I know better now. But I still have this problem with the slopes. They are not easy to maintain. Red in the garden generally, or in paintings for that matter, or on other things, they do catch our attention. In the garden they tend to jump out and become dominant very quickly and even tiresome. Subconsciously, I think they remind us of heat, fire and so on. It's said that they raise our pulse, make us active, even offensive sometimes. Perhaps there is some truth in the expression that we see red when we are angry. To really make a red border, it was very difficult to get that concentrated red. For that reason, I needed annuals. But then in my dense plantings, they have a very hard time to compete. And then all the slugs eat them also. Perhaps I do demand too much, expect the impossible. Perennials are rarely in bloom all season. That's why I needed the annuals. And they are, of course, usually in bloom most of the season. And then I've added some bushes with red leaves and so on. But then in dusk, the red cannot be seen anymore because they have the same light intensity. I have made many quick drawings of the birds around me in the garden. I'm just not sure how to use these little sketches. They are so quickly jotted down. Unless the bird is dead, they move around a lot. And I want to describe exactly that they are not still for long. Unless, of course, they are dead or something. I find sometimes dead birds too, but not that often, fortunately. But what I want to describe is their mobility and their quick movements. This is an attempt to use the sketches. As always, in the garden as well as in my studio, I just do things. I'm not thinking before, but I see now that I've used the blue and the yellow, the contrasting colors, and to put them together means that they make us worried. They are clashing with each other, and I suppose what I'm trying to express is the birds moving about all the time. So this is just an attempt, and it's really stupid of me to show you this, because in no way am I ready to show this. I don't know if it's any good. It's just an attempt to try to see how can I express this. So why I did this combination, I'm not sure, but making blue together, or putting blue together with yellow, can make the yellow more intense and maybe a little bit loud, because that's what happens when you put contrasting colors together. But I don't mind. I kind of like it. And this trick to use contrasting colors can be very useful in the garden. For example, in the bluish, in the bed with blue colors, I have let one of the inula stay because it's self-seeded there, and I can see that the blue geranium and allium and azonite seems so much bluer when it comes with this tiny bit of yellow. So often I hear people saying that they dislike yellow flowers, especially if they are not much into gardening. And it's always surprised me, because the yellow color feels very happy and sunny and optimistic to me. And also it can be less demanding if the daylight is milder, as it is late in the season or in the evening and so on. Otherwise, they can be a little bit a bit too loud, perhaps. I have no idea why I started painting a lot of blue canvases. Am I feeling blue? Or why? I don't know. But blue can feel very quiet and cool. We are subconsciously reminded of the distance, of water, of the sky. In the garden, I have tried to concentrate blue plants on the other side of the slope, equally difficult as the red one. The good things with blue is that it always is blue, in all sorts of shades, of course, light blue, dark blue, but always blue, I think. My thought has been to make the garden seem larger when you look at the garden from the house. Blue tends, to feel further away, and I thought it might fool your eye. This slope is also partly shaded in the afternoon, and that light, I think, makes the blue even more beautiful. With color, you can manipulate how far away things are, and the high intensity reflects the light better on a border. Nej, det var dumt. Det måste vi göra om. Jag vet inte vad jag har skrivit här. Kan vi ta It's partly shaded in the afternoon. Kan du klippa det, tror du?
Vi kör på partly shaded in the afternoon.
Ja. It's partly shaded in the afternoon, this slope, and the light then makes the blue more attractive, I think. As you know, you can manipulate with distance and blue, because blue tends to, the eye thinks that it's further away. And I hope this impression will help our little plot look larger. What Senini writes about ultramarine makes me always very unsure in front of my canvas when I'm painting. He says that the ultramarine is a very noble color, and he thinks that I should think carefully when I use it. He also writes that if I can use it correctly, it can make me honor, but I must be careful. You know, it's made from ground up laser, so it's of course a very valuable color. The black background on this painting with red flowers make the red much more intense. It seems like red and yellow becomes more intense together with black, and it's quite the opposite when you put blue colors with black. They seem to become less blue. I'm not really sure how I can use this knowledge from the studio in the garden. Goethe describes how white changes depending on what color is next to it. And that is, I suppose, the reason why shades on the snow can be very blue or even purple. And when the sun shines on the snow and the snow becomes a tint of yellow, I can see this even better. Dark colored flowers, they look very good in vases or in a pot, but when I plant them in the garden, they just disappear against the dark soil. You cannot see them much. They don't do much good. People sometimes ask me or say, now there's nothing to see in your garden, is there? And then they forget all the green colors there are. There's so many shapes and so many different kinds of green in the garden. It's always nice to look at a green garden. And as you know, it's the natural color for us all. We live in nature, and it makes us calm and comfortable. Usually the green color does. So, of course, there's a lot to see in the garden when it's green. Color in your garden or in my studio or as a subject is a very big subject, and I have no hope even to cover half of it. It's also, I'm very impatient, so maybe that's the reason why I prefer to work intuitively instead of using my brain all the time and be so aware of different knowledge from other people. Stupid.